Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
TV. This is John Kohlmeyer here with SportsTalk Philadelphia. I just showed you my secret paper. I'm here with Caleb Flagger and Tyler Small. We're talking a little Phillies, but mainly just the Eagles. Disappointing loss, to say the least, last week. Disappointing season opener. So let's start. Obviously, who do we put the loss on here? Because a lot of people are saying Wentz. I would also lend in that direction. Wentz starting off 14 for 18 with 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then after that, he just didn't do a thing. And I would blame Wentz for that loss. Tyler, who are you putting the loss on?
I'm kind of putting it on injuries. I mean, I think I was watching the Red Zone for this actually, and the big-eared guy that does Red Zone, I forget his name, but he actually said the Eagles are going into week 1 like they ended week 17. Like riddled with injuries. And I think losing Lane Johnson was huge. Obviously, the line was a problem. We're going to get into the sack numbers and stuff like that. Wentz obviously going 14 for 22 in the first half with 2 touchdowns and 182 yards, and then falling to 10 for 20 with 88 yards in the second half. That's a huge drop-off, but I think it's also due to his receivers. I mean, Goddard was the only receiver that was good enough to stay throughout the game. 8 receptions for over 100 yards. So I think it's mostly because of injuries and just no preseason.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tyler. I mean, having Miles Sanders out and also Lane Johnson, 2 your pretty much cornerstone pieces on offense, having them be out for week 1 is a total blow. I mean, I saw a stat. I mean, if you look at the Eagles with Lane Johnson throughout his whole career, they're 36-17 with him, and without him, they're 6-12. So I mean, that just shows that how much of an important piece Lane Johnson is that offensive line. And I think that was just week 1. You're right. It was the injuries. I mean, once we get Lane Johnson back, that line's definitely going to be back to normal. I think they're going to be fine. But it was definitely a disappointing loss.
Plus, I mean, Kelsey was a game-time decision, and you could tell from his play that he was a game-time decision. I mean, he was obviously battling something. We don't know what. So we'll see about that. But obviously, not having a run game is obviously going to hurt Wentz, the offense entirely, because Boston Scott, I mean, he only got 9 touches, but still, he's no Miles Sanders.
To me, I feel like Wentz doesn't have the luxury of excuses this season, and I think the receiving core wasn't really the main thing. And I like you said, we are going to get into the line, but I don't even think the line was totally to blame here. To me, this loss felt like last year against Miami when they lost in Miami. It felt like that kind of a blow to me. And I put that mainly on Carson, and I also put that on Doug. But let's move on. What are your impressions of the O-line? 8 sacks, obviously. Caleb, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they look like tissue paper out there. I mean, disappointment. I mean, I think they had like 5 or 6 of their sacks in the first quarter. I mean, we're not going to have Wentz for a full 16 games into the playoffs if he's going to be getting sacked like that starting week 1. I mean, you got to protect your quarterback. It was just a complete disappointment. It was a complete wreck. I mean, I think Driscoll got hurt, the rookie. I mean, there's a bunch – they were falling left and right. I mean, it was a pretty bad scenario. But
yeah, I agree with you, but I'm actually going to go more for John's side on the fact of a lot of these sacks being Wentz's fault. I went through after the game and kind of just watched all of them. This is really bad statistics here. I was just doing a stopwatch. So the first sack took 3.2 seconds. That was the line, obviously. You can't get a ball off in 3.5 seconds. Second one, 5.4 seconds. It was him. I mean, he just tried spinning out of it right into the defender's arms. Next one was 6.01 seconds. Coverage sack, but it was also him, and he fumbled. Fourth sack, 6.5 seconds, obviously him. Fifth sack, the first 4 were in the first half. Fifth sack, 5.58 seconds, also him. And that sack put him out of field goal range, which is obviously pretty crucial in this game. Sixth one was 4.28 seconds, more on the line, but it was also a turnover on downs on 4th down. Seventh was 6.58 seconds, line. And then the last one was 8.64 seconds in a fumble. And 7 of those 8 sacks came out of shotgun formation. So I think Wentz's decision-making, I think that his quickness in the pocket and his trust to get out of the pocket, because we know sometimes he makes those incredible plays, it sometimes comes to bite him, and I think this was also a huge factor in it.
Yeah, and that 6-1, I think it was the 6-1 you said, where it did take him out of field goal range.
Yes.
It was that thing where he escapes a tackle and then he drops back even further.
Yep.
And has to know to get rid of the ball right then and there. And by his 5th year, we all kind of were hoping he would have that figured out. And it seems like there's a concern now that he's not fully developed into that player, that he would get those kinks out of his game at this point. And that's why I'm so disappointed with this game. But I don't know. I really think most of this was on Wentz. So, but obviously the injury bug did bite him again. Like you said, Caleb, they did lose the rookie tackle. And where does this leave them from here? Does this dramatically change your outlook on the season? Do you feel good about the rest of the season? What do you think?
I mean, one game definitely doesn't tell the whole story for a whole team. I mean, it's just week 1. They can definitely build on this. But, I mean, we got to get healthy. That's the number one thing. I mean, you can't go the whole season like we did last year, trying to have replacements every week. I mean, it just catches up to you, and it gets tiring after a 16-game season. It's long. I mean, they just got to get healthy. That's the number one thing. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, he looked like he was a little banged up too. I mean, it's got to get everyone healthy. It's pretty frustrating. I mean, it seems like it's every year it's the injury bug that gets the Eagles, but –
really does. I mean, I really don't see it that much. Every team kind of had an excuse coming into week 1 without the preseason. Also, we get it's the Washington football team, so we're not expecting too much from them. I expect them to be just as good, if not worse, than the Giants. However, their defense really came to play. I mean, Chase Young, Sweat had both a sack and a half each. They were outstanding in that game. But at the same time, I mean, division foes, good or bad, it's really difficult to win 2 times against a team in a season, like no matter who it is. So I think, especially on the road, it's going to have an excuse next to it, but obviously wasn't a good look to start the season.
Was there any strengths for the team that you guys saw in this game? Or
I thought their secondary looked really good. I mean, I saw a PFF stat. I think their defense was actually ranked number 1. They only let up about 258 yards for the whole game, so their defense actually looked really good. I mean, like you said, it was more on Wentz and the offense that didn't get it really going that game. But I thought the defense and the secondary looked really good. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the defense with their back against the wall too. I mean, they had a lot of short field opportunities. The field time was pretty much split right down the middle, 30-30. But think about it, there was 3 fumbles. Unfortunately, not all of them went to the Redskins, and 2 interceptions. The defense really had to struggle for a majority of the game. They played well. And the only other takeaway I had from this is it really seems that Goddard's going to be the tight end 1. Yeah. I think that Ertz is kind of taking that back step now. He was a non-factor after the first touchdown. I think that's the only other takeaway you could see from it.
Yeah, and maybe that kind of might explain why they haven't really gotten a deal done with Ertz yet, because they feel so good about Goddard. And,
they should.
Yeah, but and I agree about the defense. Absolutely. The defense was not to blame here. Washington didn't win this game. The Eagles lost. And the only thing about the defense is Fletcher Cox hasn't really made an impact in a while to me, even going back in the last season. I think he only had like 2 tackles in this game. So that was the only thing about the defense that I would say is a concern. But, yeah, other than that, I do think it was the offense. But let's talk about the Rams game coming up. Lane's coming back, obviously. Who do you think wins this game, and by what margin?
I'll go first. I think I see the Eagles taking this one. I mean, Rams had a really impressive win over the Cowboys. I think a lot of people thought that this team, I should say, would not be competing this year. I mean, they looked like their window closed last season, just money-wise, with how much money they put into the defense, and now they're just paying Cooper Kupp and Jalen Ramsey. It looks like they're going to run out soon. They still have a ferocious defense. I think it's going to be a similar type game to this Washington game because, obviously, of Aaron Donald and the pressure that they supply. But I really do see the Eagles coming back on top. They always do well after a controversial loss, or they always do well when their backs are against the wall. I just have a good feeling about the Eagles going into this week.
Yeah, I think the Eagles should come out with the W this week. The Rams are a very good football team. I don't think anyone should underestimate that. They're a really good football team, and the Eagles are going to have to come out and play their A game to win this game. But, I mean, you're adding Miles Sanders and you're adding Lane Johnson, and you add those two guys to your offense, and the game's completely changed in the Redskins game. And I think they're going to be two complete game changers in this game. I mean, you have Miles Sanders, he's probably going to get 20 to 25 touches in this game, and the Eagles didn't run the ball that much last game, and that was pretty much the main factor. I mean, if you look at the Eagles last season, when they rushed for over 100 yards a game, they usually won that game. So not having the run game going this past week really hurt us, and I think having Miles Sanders this week against the Rams is going to help us get the W.
All right. That's the Eagles. Now on to the Phillies. Obviously, another disappointing week for the Phillies. They dropped 8 out of their last 12, swept by the Marlins over the weekend, including one from one of their own former prospects, Sixto Sanchez. How do you guys, Caleb, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the Phillies outlook on the season? Do you think they make the playoffs sitting at 500 right now? What do you think?
They should definitely make the playoffs just because there's a shortened season, the way they added the MLB, more playoff teams. But they don't look good. I mean, after that 10-game win streak they went on, they've looked atrocious. I mean, they went back to their old habits again. The bullpen looks awful again. And then they lose 5-7 to Miami Marlins. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, for some reason, the Marlins have been – I mean, they've been a pain to the Phillies the past 2 years. They can't beat them for some reason. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Phillies should get in the playoffs, but I still don't see them as a contender this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really think they're going to lock into that first or second wild card spot, which right now has them up against either the Dodgers or the Padres, which are two teams you don't want to mess with right now. But in years past, I think Marlins were just one of those annoying losses. But now, this Marlins team, I don't even take a 2 out of 5. I think that's kind of a little win for them, just to take a couple games for them. Because, for one, they played a 7-game series. The last time that happened was 1903. So it was just brutal scheduling. They pretty much had a 7-game series against them, which they obviously would have lost. But, I mean, they got Starling Marte at the trade deadline. He has an 823 OPS. Jesus Aguilar and Brian Anderson have above an 830 OPS since joining the Marlins. And the only thing that stunk is what you guys said. I mean, seeing Sixto Sanchez shoved this year, 3-1 in 5 starts with a 2.63 ERA plus. And then you even saw Jorge Alfaro kind of have a good bat in this series against them. So obviously those hurt. It was well worth the JT Realmuto trade. It's only if they re-sign him, of course. But I think it's difficult. I mean, the Marlins are going to take that second NL East spot. This was the huge deciding series for that, but I still see the Phillies making the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously the Phillies with some injury issues as well. Hoskins going to the 10-day DL, Wheeler, Realmuto himself, and also Spencer Howard, the young pitcher. So who needs to step up for the Phillies to you guys to make up for those losses?
I mean, it'd be nice to see. I mean, Alec Boehm has been stepping up, but nice to see him take that to the next level. And also, Gene Segura and Scott Kingery both got to step up. I mean, especially Scott Kingery. I mean, he was one of our top prospects coming in. We signed him to one of those 5-year deals, and he hasn't really proved himself in that deal yet. I mean, he sees the injury list getting higher and higher. I mean, he's got to notice that, and he's got to step up. So hopefully Scott Kingery steps up this time.
Yeah, and I think Alec Boehm will be the reason that Scott Kingery finally does step up. I mean, Kingery's gotten the benefit of the doubt just because of his speed and his utility factor, where Alec Boehm's kind of been in the depths because he was a similar guy that got signed pretty early before making his appearance. But I hope that I can move Kingery. I like that Didi Gregorius is stepping up right now. He's had a hot bat, including a homer in this Mets game. Oh, excuse me. But it's got to be an overall thing. I think it's more the pitching staff. You need to see Eflin have a couple good starts because if they do get to a 3-game series, you obviously have Nola and Wheeler penciled into the 1-2, especially with Wheeler coming off that weird pants injury. But it's a battle now for who's going to get that third spot. I mean, Spencer Howard's hurt, obviously. He was going to make a push for that. Zach Eflin could have Vince Velasquez if we could ever figure it out. So I think that's the pitching staff and bullpen who's going to be falling where when the playoffs come because they can win a 3-game series with this rotation. So I think that's going to be the biggest factor because the offense will always step up. It's one of the best in baseball.
One of the weirder injuries of the year, I would say, is that pants injury. So let's move on to a little segment I called Stars of the Week. there's not a whole lot going on with Philly sports right now, so I figured we would each just pick an athlete that you saw this week that shined. I'll go first. Aaron Rodgers. I think he's back in MVP form. Everyone's forgot about him. He's not that old, at least not according to Tom Brady's scale or whatever. I think he has a few more years. He went off this weekend. That's the Phillies. Never mind. So 32 for 44, 72% completion, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. Everyone wanted to talk about Devontae Adams. He was pinpoint throwing these balls. And Valdez-Scantling had a couple bomb catches. Rodgers went off this weekend. I think he's back. MVP, big Rodgers guy. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for me, you got to look at Chase Young. I mean, that guy, he completely wrecked the Eagles game. I mean, he was making Jason Peters, you look at him, look like a scrub. I mean, he showed the Eagles that they're going to have to worry about him for probably the next 8 to 10 years. I mean, he's going to be the player that everyone thought he was going to be probably. He's going to live up to the number 2 overall pick hype. Just really nerve-wracking for an Eagles fan watching him come off Wentz's blindside edge for the next years to come. But I don't know. Hopefully, Andre Dillard can get healthy and start blocking him soon.
That whole line is going to be scary.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a sign of what's to come in Washington. Yeah. I'm gonna need your guys' help with this one. I'm between 2 baseball players right now. Should I go with my Yankees bias because I'm a diehard Yankee fan, or do I go MLB?
Go Yankees.
All right, I'll go Yankees. Luke Voit, the first baseman. The Yankees got him for international signing bonus out of the St. Louis Cardinals organization 2 years ago, just for absolutely nothing. This guy looked like he was a lost prospect, AAA bound for the rest of his life. 28 years old. He makes his MLB debut with the Yankees, has a pretty significant career, struggled last year. He's leading the MLB in homers right now with 17. He has 2 in the game right now where the Yankees put up 19 runs before we started recording. He has been carrying this struggling with injury team. Sounds like the Eagles. It is unbelievable. A 933 OPS for a guy with his highest OPS in the minor leagues was 840. He's just been playing out of his mind right now, carrying the Yankees, and I cannot wait to see him in the playoffs.
All right, Luke Voit. I like it.
Yeah.
That about does it for this week of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Thank you guys for watching. Signing off. What was that?